Hi y'all, it's Kimberly here. Thank you for coming to my channel. Well, today I'm going to talk about an incident that occurred in Lubbock, Texas on November the 5th, 2021. Chad Reed was unalived by Kyle Carruth in a self-defense situation, or what was ruled a self-defense situation. And this happened in Texas, which Texas has some of the strongest self-defense laws. There's the castle law, which allows you to protect yourself in your home with an extension of your car and your job. And self-defense is it's a big issue, I think, across the country. There are more states that are implementing castle laws and self-defense laws. Also, trespassing in Texas is a big issue. It's a big deal. You just can't do it. Once you are told to leave somebody's property, you must leave. No matter what, if you do initially have permission to be there, once the property owner, the person that lives at that residence tells you to leave, you must leave. You can risk being arrested if you don't. Oh, sorry, this shouldn't happen this early on. This incident occurred while Chad Reed was attempting to pick up his kids per the custody agreement. And the people present were him, his wife Jennifer, and his ex-wife, and her boyfriend Kyle Carruth. It's not clear whether it was at Kyle Carruth's house or the ex-wife's house. I'm not sure who was the actual owner or the person on the lease of the residence. I saw conflicting reports when I was looking this up. So it was either the ex-wife's house or Kyle Carruth's house, which in a self-defense case, that really doesn't matter, because if you're defending yourself at your own home, you're perfectly within the law. And if you are at somebody else's residence and you are protecting them and yourself, even though you don't own the property or you're not on the lease, you have the right to defend that person in the defense of others. And this is a case that is a perfect example of self-defense. A lot of people disagreed with the outcome of the case, but a lot of people are not understanding, and they're confusing issues in the case. There's a big issue with the child custody. A lot of people don't quite understand that was not the point. The reason that it was ruled self-defense was because Chad Reed was showing so much aggression after being told to get off the property, and he was physically pressing his body up against another individual. And this, you cannot invade somebody's space. You cannot physically press your body up against somebody else. I'm not going to show the video on my channel. It shows somebody, being unalived, and you can look it up. There's several videos across YouTube. You can look it up under Chad Reed or Kyle Carruth if you want to see the actual video. And you will see that he did press his body up against another person, was backing them up. So I'm going to kind of go through the incident as it was happening on the video. And I don't know what happened before the video. At some point, Chad Reed's wife, Jennifer, started videotaping. She was kind of further back. I think she was in the car, and she got out. She started videotaping it, or using her phone to record it. And at some point, he became irate. The child he was supposed to pick up, or children, I'm not sure how many. I'm not going to say their names because they're minors. And he became irate. Something was not going right. The child was not there for him to pick up. And I'm not sure if they told him that before they started recording, but it was mentioned after he fell face down on the porch. But at some point he became irate. He got very physical. He pressed himself up against Kyle Carruth, started walking Kyle Carruth backwards, and Mr. Carruth was telling him repeatedly to get off, leave, kicking him off the property, essentially, which at that point, Mr. Reed had to leave the property. It doesn't matter that he had directives in his custody agreement that he could pick up kids at whatever residence or wherever. It didn't matter about that point. He should have left. He did say that he called the police, so the police were on their way. But at that point, he should have left. He should have went to his car, and he should have waited for the police to show up. The police would have probably told him to leave anyway. He probably would not have had any resolution to the child support, because that would have been a court order, a court situation. He would have had to go back to court or report it to the judge what had happened, the incident that happened, that he was not getting his kids from his ex-wife. That's a total different incident than what happened, because you can't just go on somebody's property, be aggressive, and physically accost them and demand, whatever you're trying to get or pick up. You can't do that, especially in a custody agreement. And people who have custody agreements, they know that. Anybody watching this video has custody agreements with their exes. They know that they cannot go onto that person's property, act in an aggressive manner, and physically press your body up against somebody. You will lose custody of your kids, or that ex will use that to modify the custody agreement. So most people who have seen this video will know that you can't do that when you're going to pick up your kids. So Mr. Reed became angry at some point, pressed his body up against Mr. Carruth. They were arguing. Mr. Carruth told him repeatedly to get off the property. Mr. Reed continued to back him up. Mr. Carruth got a few steps back and went inside his house, came out with a shotgun, and still Mr. Reed pressed himself up against, you can see one part of the video where the shotgun is between them and they are pressed up against each other in personal space, which you can't do. Everybody knows that. And then finally Mr. Carruth stepped back a few more steps. He fired a warning shot at the ground. At that point, Mr. Reed should have left. Most people, instead of leaving, he said something, something MF or cursed at him, and kind of like told him, bring it on or something like that. I don't know. And Mr. Carruth did not want any kind of aggressive confrontation or anything like that. He wanted Mr. Reed to leave his property, or the ex-wife's property. Like I say, I'm not sure whose property it was, but it really didn't matter. Even if they'd been in a public place, they still had a right to defend themselves physically. And after the warning shot, which most people would have probably started running or backed up and said, okay, and left, or waited for the police. And instead, he became more aggressive. He eventually, Mr. Carruth did fire the gun and fatally wound Mr. Reed, which Mr. Reed fell face down on the porch, and that is shown in the video. And then Mr. Carruth stood on the porch with the gun pointing down, and Jennifer, his wife, Mr. Reed's wife, they exchanged words, and Mr. Carruth said repeatedly, I wanted y'all to leave, just saying things like, I asked y'all to leave, repeatedly over and over. And you don't have to ask somebody to leave. You tell them to leave. When they're trespassing, you can tell them to leave your property. You have that right. And I'm going to go over I've gone over the trespassing and the self-defense laws in Texas. They're very strong here in Texas. But the custody agreement, a lot of people are trying to infuse that with the incident that happened. Yes, he did have a custody agreement, and yes, he was supposed to pick up his kids. And the child was not there. So at that point, he should have backed up, gone to his car. If he wanted to call the police, he could have, but he should have called his lawyer and said, I can't pick up my kid. And that would have been used probably against the ex-wife in court. So this could have been settled in court. Instead, he chose to back up another man, become physical, and try to cause a confrontation with somebody, get in their personal space over something that was supposed to be worked out in court. Even though he already had the right to pick up his child, the child was not there. There was nothing else for him to be there for. So he should have left at that point. And it's, and I'm not trying to say this without feeling. I feel sorry that these children are, I'm not sure how many number of children there are. This child or these children, their father is not here anymore. And I feel horrible for those kids. But without bringing them into this, I'm going to just continue on with talking about the reason why it was ruled as self-defense. As again, you cannot get in somebody's personal space. Trespassing is big in Texas, and we have very strong self-defense laws here. And the custody agreement, there are millions of them every year in the U.S. There's so many divorces and so many custody agreements. One custody agreement is not going to be considered more. This may not sound very nice, but to law enforcement, one agreement is not more important than the other. When they show up, they're going to tell you to leave. They're going to tell you to call your lawyer and not to come back. And they will probably put a trespass warning on you, and they might even arrest you. And I believe that the only reason that Chad Reed's wife let this video be put on YouTube, be published, and be seen is because he was fatally wounded. And actually, this video does not work in the favor of Mr. Reed because it showed his aggressive nature. It showed how physical he became and the fact that he would not respect the law of trespassing. And had he survived, his wife Jennifer would not have, Mr. Reed and his wife would not have wanted this video to be put out because of all those reasons, showing his aggressive behavior. If he acts that way in public towards people, there's, the saying of what does he do in, behind closed doors? Nobody knows. You really don't know how people are behind closed doors. But that aggressive behavior that was shown on that video, this video would not have been seen, never be seen, except for the exception that he did not, that he passed away per the actions of Kyle Carruth in the act of self-defense. So this would have probably been used by the ex-wife if it was published, or was not published, but allowed to be seen publicly. It would have probably been used to take custody away from him, or to modify the custody, or he might have ended up with supervised visitation because of his aggressive behavior. So I think the only reason that it was released was because of what happened. As I say, if he would have survived, I don't think this video would have ever seen the light of day. It's unfortunate that this happens, and it happens a lot. This is one of the most dangerous calls, any kind of domestic dispute call, in law enforcement. That's one of the most dangerous calls that they can go to. And especially with a person who's that aggressive, that will physically back you, physically press himself up against you. And I've had several arguments with people about this. I've said, you mean the video where the guy was pressing his body up against the other guy and backing him up? And they're like, he didn't touch him, and I'm astounded. I said, well, we must not be talking about the same video, because I saw a video of a guy who was pressing himself up against somebody and backing them up. And then even when he fired a warning shot, the guy didn't leave. And repeatedly, I got into arguments with several people about this. And I was shocked because one person that I was speaking to has lived in Texas almost all their life and is very aware, very indoctrinated to Texas life, Texas law and behavior. And their son actually open carried. and we have open carry here in Texas. And I was a little astounded because, I mean, when you open carry, the gun is right there, or the weapon or whatever it is right there for you to use. And some people criticized Mr. Carruth for saying that since he went inside and quickly grabbed a gun, he must have set it up. Well, a lot of people do keep their guns or weapons in maybe in the living room or the area, in an area where it's close to the front door or where somebody may kick the door in, and it may be loaded. You just don't know in a state that has these type of open carry and these kind of laws. And this is sad, unfortunate, horrible situation. But a lot of people are confusing the custody agreement issue with the self-defense part. You have a right to defend yourself in Texas, and this is just one of the most clear-cut cases that I've ever seen. And in the city, I actually grew up in that area, and there's been numerous self-defense cases that I've seen come and go, and most of them are successful in the defense of self-defense, and there are some that are not. But this one is just about one of the most clear-cut, perfect examples of self-defense, because it doesn't matter why you're mad at somebody. It doesn't matter what the reason that you think that you can be around somebody on their property initially. It matters the intent. And first, your intent may be, as Mr. Reed, to go pick up his kids. But once you are perceived as a threat, that's what matters. It's not your perception that, I'm going to scare the crap out of this person until they do what I want. That's the thing that will get you in trouble. It's the perception that you give other people that you're threatening them. And in this case, it's very heated, and it's about two men. One of them wants the other guy off the property, and the other guy wants something that he thinks he's entitled to, which he is entitled to his kids per the custody agreement. But the custody agreement is very clear. Any custody agreement is very clear about picking up your kids and the way you behave, because it will be modified if you act aggressively. And everybody who has a custody agreement has ever gone through it, exactly what I'm talking about. Every ex hinges on that I can't wait till they do something, I'm going to use it against them. And this is exactly what would have been used against Chad Reed had he survived. And it's, like I say, just a horrible incident. But for a lot of people, they are stuck on the custody agreement, and it really has nothing to do with that. Because, as I said, he should have backed away, waited for the police. The police would have kicked him off the property anyway. They would have told him, you can't go on there. And once, yes, the child was not there. I was going to say something about that. At the end of the video that I saw, or I've seen several, there's, I think, one or two people that took videos. I don't know if there was another person with them. I'm not sure, but I did see a couple of different angles. But afterwards, when Mr. Reed is laying face down and the ex-wife is hollering out, there's some exchange between her and Mr. Carruth. She was told, well, he's not here anyway, or the child is not here anyway. So I'm kind of under the impression that he wasn't told before, but I really don't know. I mean, I just remember hearing that in the video. And there's a point that somebody argued with me that he wasn't being aggressive at all. He wasn't being aggressive at all, And I was like, well, what do you define aggression as, So if Mr. Reed had been told, and if it had been shown on the video, Mr. Reed's reaction to the child not being there, Would he have left? I don't think so. I don't think he would have believed that the child was not there. So that's why I kind of believe that Mr. Reed was not told the child was not there. Because I think that he would have not left. He would have stayed there like he was doing. And there was no discussion of he's not there while Mr. Reed was alive. So for me, I believe that he wasn't. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure because the video starts only at a certain point. But his wife, Jennifer, was told at the end of the video that the child wasn't there. And I don't believe Mr. Reed would have left, said, oh, okay, I'm going to leave now. I believe he would have stayed there. He would have tried to get into the house or try to find his child. So that, that's a very, just an extremely aggressive reaction that Mr. Reed had. And he was, I guess, fueled by, there might have been previous things that have happened. I don't know. I don't know this case. I haven't really followed too much. I just looked it up, a few my major points to make this video. So Mr. Reed probably would not have left, even if he had been told, as I believe that he wasn't, that the child's not there, or the children. And he would have stayed there, and I think he would have become more aggressive. And the only reason I believe that this video was shown was, his wife is very upset, very angry, very, very hurt, with the incident happening. And I believe that's the reason why it was released, thinking that it would help his, Mr. Reed's, well, not defense, but for people to be in his corner or something like that. But I think it actually hurt Mr. Reed because it did show how aggressive he is, how he wasn't afraid of a physical confrontation, that he violated the child custody, because you cannot act that way when you're picking it up. It may not be written into it, but everybody knows you cannot act like that when you go pick up your kids. Even if you don't get your children at the time, you know that you can't do that, because you know you will either lose custody, lose visitation, lose some custodial rights or something. And I believe that was the only reason why this video was shown by his wife. Okay, that's my understanding of the case, because of what I know about Texas trespassing laws and assault. Physically, you physically cannot do stuff like that to people, and per castle and self-defense laws. And you have to be very careful in situations like that when you're going to pick up your kids. It's paramount that you do not show aggression, you do not get into a physical confrontation, because, as I say, a lot of your rights can be adjusted, and especially if it's on video, it will work against you. And I believe that's what would have occurred had Mr. Reed survived. Well, thank you for coming to my channel, and I will see y'all again.